Hello, and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Podcast. This is the back of the bus session.
Hello and welcome to the Old Farm Bus, Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. Today I'm absolutely buzzing, not because I've had 4 coffees, but because I'm back with one of my good mates, Polarbear.
Hello.
Mate, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. It don't feel like that long ago.
Well,
When
I
was
think
it? When was
we're
it?
on episode now 100 and you'll be about 40.
Yeah.
And your episode was, I saw today, 115.
Okay.
So 30 episodes ago.
Okay. Wow.
So
Okay.
that's
You do a lot, man.
Yeah, I keep pumping them out,
Wicked.
mate.
Fair play.
It was a good episode, that one. It was really nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Just letting everybody know this is my hero.
Go shut up, man.
But I'm not going to gush as hard as I did on that episode. But if you do want to hear me gushing, what a lovely word that is. That was episode 115. I'll put that in the link below. But mate,
Wicked.
you're back on the farm.
Yep.
You're coming to teach some kids.
Yep.
I'm very much looking forward to it. But we've been talking about on the way here how the farm's been having its teething process, and we've been having these struggles a little bit, but also lots of elements of brilliance.
Yeah.
When you got into teaching, because if your experience is anything like mine, I just wanted to do my passion and do what I enjoy doing. So I was going on stages and performing and being a poet. And then one day somebody came over to me and said, "Do you fancy coming into schools? Because I feel what you're doing would really resonate, particularly with some of the naughty boys."
Yeah.
But they got me in, and I was very hesitant because I didn't have a great time at school.
Yeah.
But eventually I took the opportunity. I went to Sheffield Hallam University for the first one. I was teaching NQTs.
Okay.
But then after that, one of the NQTs got me into a pupil referral unit.
Yep.
And the best session of my life. I could really tell you some lovely things that happened there. But that kind of, I really want to be doing this.
Yeah.
So could you tell me a bit about your journey into...
Quite similar, really, in a sense that it was something that I wasn't aware of, much like the performance, falling into the performance, or in the sense of falling into the form. I didn't know what spoken word was or anything until I was kind of doing it, and then really quickly, I think it must have been a teacher at a gig had gone, "Do you go into schools?" And in the most, I was like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah.
And then in my mind, I thought she meant like, come like perform. And I mean, like, do you mean like an assembly? And she was like, yeah. But then and workshops. And this sounds ridiculous. I didn't have a clue what she meant. So a guy called Richard, who had kind of like taken me under his wing and seen me at my first ever gig. He'd been hosting it, and had sorted me out a couple of gigs subsequent to that. I just talked to him, and he was like, "Come and shadow." And again, I'm like, what you, like,
So
that was a graphic
even
novel.
The word workshop, were you like...
Didn't have a clue,
what's
mate.
The word?
Didn't have a
mate,
clue.
them the same.
Didn't
exactly.
have a clue. Didn't have a clue. And
yeah.
like, it was that would meant like files and sander or whatever, right?
You,
and it's one of the ones. It's just like anyway. So I go like just come to this school. I went along to this school, getting my little sticker. I remember feeling like just being proper punked out to start with, because like you say, like school was what it was. School was like for me anyway. It was. I was saying earlier, I was close to the ones who would always kick off.
Yeah.
But I was never that guy, but in some situations I was close to the ones who could do quite well, but I was never that guy either. So for me it was very much like, okay, I'm here, I've got to be here, navigate it, just get through it.
Coercive institutions.
Just like that kind of thing, right? And like I never had a teacher. And to be fair, the more I think about this, it's a two-way thing, because I never had a teacher go like, check this out on the sly or anything. But it was probably because I never showed anything in the lesson that would be a hint for them to do that. Maybe that's being kind to them, but not being less kind is a bit more like there just weren't any. There weren't. No one seemed to be really, really into their shit, like whatever they were teaching. So I just got through it. But so I rock up this, come to this school with Richard, and he goes in and he's basically just throwing. It seems like he's just throwing stuff out, and they're doing what they want. And then he kind of he was steering it towards. He must have talked to the teacher at the time. There was a certain topic they were doing, something about carnival or something. So they had this kind of focus of it, and I was like, "Yo, I could do this," and it wasn't like, and I was like, I could, imagine all the stories. And while we're doing I'm supposed to be like shadowing and getting them to write things about kind of, I'm just asking loads of questions, like what people are into, or like how much writing do you do in class, or whatever else. And I left going, that's a thing that I felt I could be all right with. I was still, I'd be shocked to go by myself, but like, and then he not long after that, he must have got like double booked or something.
Oh.
And he like sent me, right? And then then in my mind I was like, oh, you get paid to do that as well. You can get paid to do it. And at the time, you know what I mean? I was scrabbling around, and I'm like, okay, right. But here's the thing, like, even then, I really, really, really struggled to plan, right? And it's just not something I'm good at just generally in life. But it seemed like it was very much about, we'll do 10 minutes of this, then we'll do 5 minutes of that. And my brain just couldn't handle that, because if I got excited by something, that's where we stayed. And
you're too rigid in this
and
formula.
I guess, but it worked. And I guess there was a satisfaction of that efficiency.
Yeah.
That it wasn't even like I was thought, that's not for me. It was just like, I couldn't do it. I'd sit and I'd try. I'd even get like you give me a template of like a sheet of A4 with the minutes broken down, and I'm like, I can't. I'm trying to. It feels like an exam question, and I don't know what the answers are. So I was like, I'll tell you what, I know what I'm going to do, right? And I remember, I went into this class, and like, they were year 8, and there's loads of them, and I'm sweating now. I'm proper nervous. I got in. I took off my shoe, and I put my shoe on the kind of desk, right? And in my mind I'm going, this is so sweet. I'm so cool or whatever. and then like, what's going on? I'm like, whose shoe's that? And like a couple of them in front, like, so it's your shoe. You just took it off. Yeah, I know, but I said, if it wasn't my shoe, whose shoe could it be? And they were like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh no, this is supposed to go. And I'm like, Keith or something. I think I said Keith, and they're like, what? I'm like, Keith. It's Keith's shoe. Like, who's Keith? I'm like, yeah, who's Keith? How old is he? And then this thing just kind of grew, where this geezer called Keith, who was like 28 or whatever, and we just built this character.
Mate,
right? And
I love it.
And it was one of them ones where it's like, right, bam, there's...
You didn't know you were going to do that to a degree?
No, I knew I was going to take off my shoe and do that. And what I was hoping was going to happen was I'd do that, and then they have some ideas, and I'd make up something. What I hadn't planned on was how quickly people would want to own who this person was.
Wow.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like a thing of like, holy crap, look what we're doing. And I swear down, it was such a buzz. And when I left, the teacher was like, like, mate, that was wicked. Such and such, who never says anything, said stuff. And that's when you start getting put in that situation whereby I think part of it is like a kind of stereotypical like a gender thing. I'm sure that the rhyme and hip hop and the categorization of what people make of that means you go, I've got some year 9 boys who will love you.
Yeah.
And so before you know it, I'm getting invited in a lot to work with the year 9 boys who don't want to do anything to get them to try and write stuff so they can. And I'm fine with that, but it was, even from the beginning, it wasn't. I'm not interested in just. I want to make stories up with everybody. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then I was lucky because just at gigs, it would always happen via gigs. A teacher would come up or someone would come up, and next thing you know, I'm doing stuff at a uni, doing stuff with like some primary school stuff, and then I was like, right, I still didn't have. In essence, doing the same thing I still do now, which is just create a world, whether it's via person or via place or whatever, and just see and try and get it. Very early on, I kind of realised that what I thought was exciting was people doing what they wanted to do. We were talking about before, like I just wanted to follow my passion and nothing else. And I was like, yeah, I think we can follow your passion via a story.
Yeah.
As well, in which kind of fits and suits the context of a school or an institution, because ultimately we're going to write or discuss something, and it's not. But it's also like, I'm not tricking you.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying we are actually going to play football. I'm saying that we're going to write about someone who loves football who can't play, and we're going to just tap into like. So it felt like it would matter, and you'd have kind of ownership.
But if there was an Ofsted inspector coming, there'd still be points dripping off the board.
Exactly. I guess. Yeah. Exactly. And what was nice about it was that felt like a lovely default or a lovely. Byproduct.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It felt. And for the first time ever, probably thinking about it now, and still to this day, and why it's the most fun or the most valuable thing to me of what I do are those sessions, whoever they're with, is it genuinely feels like what I would most like to do. It feels like the closest to what I want my time to, how I want my time, what feels good for me, and what feels good about making other people feel good, and like it just fits. I'd never had or been in a role before where I'd felt so simultaneously at ease but also excited. Do you know what I mean? And performance never gave me that, and which is why you rarely see me on stage now, but you'll see me in situations like this as much as possible, because it's
thrive.
It's the juice, yeah. It really is.
I love the nuance there as well. With a lot of in the education system, a lot of the time I feel it's got to be this or that.
Yeah.
But we were talking on the way how I've approached some schools, and actually before we were reintroduced doing these sessions again, I tried to get in touch with a school, and it might have been the same person I spoke to, but it said, no, sorry, they're too busy with their exams at the minute. And I don't understand why it's got to be that focus, when if they were coming here, that's the engagement and the thirsting to write in is going to only give gravitas and strength to what they're doing over here. And I think instead of Silas Marner or Mice and Men, kids aren't actively going out the way and saying, have you got any Silas Marner or Mice and Men in the back? But how can you make that engaging? How can you get that and turn it into something juicy and exciting for them?
I don't know. I think it's one of those tricky situations, isn't it? Because everybody believes that the context and the situation they're in, nobody else understands better than them. So, and then it comes down to personalities, about people feeling slightly threatened or kind of like questioned in a role that they feel that they understand the most. And I think it's one of them weird situations where everybody's right to an extent.
Yes.
Because you're talking about a system that has and will exist for the foreseeable. So there are outcomes that are required in order to succeed in terms of how your school looks, but also how a person can possibly do in their life. Yeah. So
the nuance comes
there.
there.
And it's like, okay, right. What I kind of struggle with sometimes is that sense of, like you were saying, like there's only one way. Yeah. And that is the way where we just got to hammer this home. We can spice it up a little bit, but this needs to be done. And you're like, right, if I don't care, I don't care, man. You're not gonna get anything out of me beyond the bare minimum. And you go, if you genuinely are saying that you want more than the bare minimum, or you want to get a sense of engagement or actual thing, then you need to respond to who is in the room. Yeah. And the problem is sometimes you can have a thing
being
where...
a peopleist.
Yeah, I guess. But you can have a situation where, like, there are some really... Like anything else, people... As soon as you're in a system, it's like people presume the role in that system is, like, uniform. Like, if you're a copper, you're this. Or if you're a teacher, you're this. Yeah. Like anything else, man. Do you know what I mean? There are cool people and not cool people. There are people who are weather-beaten and jaded, and people who are excited at the beginning and want to do stuff. And then there are people who are just purely careerist and want to get to be deputy and to be head. And there are people who just love being in a room. And it's like, what I've learned over nearly 20 years now, I guess, doing stuff is you just got to take it on a case-by-case basis and know that whatever situation you're in, trust the strength of what you do, and make sure you're not making anybody feel belittled, but also not undervaluing what you know has genuine impact. Yeah. And it's an ongoing dance, and I think that's why it's interesting to think about it in relation. That's me as an individual. When you're running a space and becoming a hub in a community that you know well, that's a whole nother level of those factors constantly on top of each other and constantly to wrestle, because you're the one, you almost become the system, because it's like, right, you're the one that's not moving. And now it's like, okay, right, I have to constantly justify this, whereas I get to kind of come in and be more malleable and do it. People want to know what you do, how you're doing it, when you're doing it, all the time. And that must be exhausting. Of course, man. And like, but it's one of the things, I don't know, it's so valuable. And the reason you started doing it, and the reason that you know that you enjoyed doing it, is because you know the value of it, and you felt the value and experienced the value of it. And it's just, so it's one of them ones where, like, you know, it's like a party, man. You bump into someone in the kitchen, and you think they're super, super cool. You go and meet your partner who was off in another room, and they go, "Don't go in the kitchen. There's a proper knob in there." And you're like, "Oh no, you mean like Bilal? I just met Bilal. He was proper." She's like, "No, you just don't know." Yeah, it's so random who you're gonna meet or whatever. I try and stay as fluid as possible. And I guess my question for you is like, right, do you think that's even possible when you've got a fixed kind of thing? Do you think is that kind of idealistic on my part, or do you think that's doable when you're? Do you know what I mean?
Really doable and important. Open-mindedness, flexibility, thinking on the spot, being creative in that moment. But also, I have seen why we have systems and why we deploy sort of structures into business, and that's kind of becoming a bit more understood to me now how schools operate. You know, before, why is it so uniformed? Why is it so cutthroat? If you step out, so I think my favourite word, nuanced, is I'm taking in what's worked there for them, but having that allowance over here. And again, you've said something beautiful on the way. It's just a process, and it's got to be a long time thing, and I've got to let it play out and see what comes and how we're going to counteract it. But it's about trusting yourself, isn't it?
Completely.
It's being confident in who you are and knowing that you're going to be as good as you can bring to the table. And in that moment, you're going to lead with your compassion, lead with your mind as well, and say, right, bring the two together. What we're going to do in this situation? Have they gone too over the mark? And that's actually a beauty, isn't it? Because we're creating a governing system now, but trying to take influence from what has worked before. I think
the important word there, and I think the word that I always hang my hat on is trust, and that is in an hour-long session or in an ongoing project that's going to roll on for years to come. I have to trust it. For me to engage and me to commit and me to offer any of myself, I have to trust it. And the lucky thing about the position that I'm in is I think something that fosters trust very quickly is genuine excitement. So when I come in, the fact that I'm genuinely, I'm not role playing a thing. Like I get so hyped
you can
by
feel
us
it.
making stuff up, right? And so people go, exactly. Well, thank you, but like people, it's just me, and it's like that's why I'm so lucky to have found this thing, because like I didn't know what it was before. I didn't have an outlet. Do you know what I mean? But it's like you meet me, or we're in a session. The worst ways you're going to be like, bloody hell, he loves it, him. Or maybe your next thought is, oh, he's a bit much anyway, he's a bit annoying or whatever. That's fine.
I get you.
Because what I'm giving you is a sense of, if you leave, I'm still doing this. And that, I think, fosters trust, because it's like, right, oh man, he's not pretending. As soon as you're not pretending, oh, right, okay, that's just him. And if you think that's me, if even a part of your brain is like, oh, I wonder what that is, now you know you can, I'm just doing it anyway.
I love that from last time.
It takes the pressure off you, because it's like, right, he's just doing it. So I don't. There's no pressure on me.
What you've just said then is really profound, because I remember another element of what we're trying to implement here. You know, we say, right, it's 11 to 17, and you kind of put that forward because as a facilitator, you're getting you in. You want to have a bit of an idea who's in front of you. And then I remember, you know, they always push you and try and get. So they'll bring in their 8-year-old or 7-year-old brother, and we had that happen here, and. So, you know, you're talking in certain terms for the majority of the class, and then there's that 7-year-old, and Chrissy's trying to give him sort of drawing sheep and stuff to do. But he was like, I think he said out loud, like, I'm bored. Everyone else was really captivated and in. But he went out, put the TV on for him, but you were just doing you. There wasn't, whereas for me, I don't know what it is, and it's something I'm working on and trying to build, but I am very hypersensitive to everything. I want everybody to have a good time. And I'm really thinking, is he all right? Oh, no, she looks upset. He's bored. Oh, at least he's smiling. And that can make it really convoluted. So I love what you said is just trust yourself. Go back to what you do really well and play that out.
Completely.
That's lovely.
Well, thank you. And it's again, it's that thing of it takes time. You know what I mean? It takes time to reach that point, because what you're saying there I completely identify with. Like you don't want to exclude anybody or whatever else, but the thing of it is, as soon as, I don't know, an idea is an idea, right? That's the beautiful thing about stories, is like stories don't really care, right? If you're like, no one's into everything at the same time in the same way, and you reach a point in your life where you're able to, school kind of makes you have to try and do that, where you have to go, right, this is not really my thing, but I've got to get through because I've got to be in this room. Right, and so when I'm in a school setting, but the difference here is you don't have to be in this room; you can kind of leave. So that almost could feel more pressured, because it's like, right, I've got to like be constantly pitching to you why you shouldn't leave this room. But I think what that communicates is there's a need in that, which isn't quite desperation, but it's something that it puts pressure on me. Because now it's like, okay, I want to leave, but now I know that they want me to stay. So now I'm like, I feel bad if I want to leave, but I do also want to leave. It's like, it's like school.
Yeah.
It's like school. And all I'm trying to do in any situation that I'm in ever, whether it's a cup of tea or a workshop, is just remove the pressure.
Yeah.
Because it's like that thing of like, right, to my experience, it doesn't help anything. It doesn't help anything. Under pressure that way, time constraints and stuff, that's a different kind of pressure. I mean, one-to-one, interpersonal pressure has never helped me. And not only does it not help me, it pushes me towards defensive. And as soon as I'm defensive, I'll burn anything.
Yeah.
In a minute. Do you know what I mean? Just because I'm not having... Nope, don't want that. And it's like, right, that's cool. So what do... And all I'm doing is just trying to mirror what I find attractive. And what I find attractive is that people who don't seem to really care, but really, really care. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, I'm just into something. A passion is attractive to me. If the thing that I'm passionate about is not attractive to you, passion is still attractive.
Yes.
Or at least it's curious. It's like, what is that? And if you figure out what it is and go, nah, that's fine. Because what clicked to me really early on, actually, in with workshops, and it might come from a defensive place, like kind of like me stopping myself worrying about the things you were talking about, like being sure everyone's feeling cool, was like the idea of 30 people in a room being interested in the same thing at the same time in the same way is ridiculous.
Thank you. Somebody said it.
Mate, you got a partner. You got a partner. I've got a partner.
Yeah.
People who've been together for years and years and years. You go to sleep next to someone. The minute before you fall asleep, you've got no idea what that person's thinking. None. Right? And either that's off-putting or that's exciting, or it's just, it is what it is. And it's like the need to control the kind of thing, it puts pressure.
Yeah.
It puts pressure, and under pressure, we all just do stuff that we don't.
I don't think diamonds are often formed, actually. I think
it's
the
one of
worst
them.
choices
They
are
are
made.
formed over millions of years by the earth on a mass scale,
Yeah.
not by a person sitting there squeezing a piece of coal, man. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, it's all right.
I think our worst decisions come from that, and it's because we're in fight and flight all the time, but
Yeah,
we're not
maybe.
actually being chased by a saber-toothed tiger anymore. We've got time to sit, relax on it, and think a bit better. But it seems like we're acting on our primatal instincts.
Yeah.
Primitive instincts.
Yeah.
Something that's shining through there for me is you're clearly confident and you've got this good self-awareness. Is that something you attribute then from your past and what's been ingrained into you, or do you have to do sort of practices and spirituality or anything there that has turned you into the character you are?
Not consciously, but I think it's definitely more of an accumulative thing, and it's definitely something that has evolved from something that years and years ago might have felt more like arrogance, or might have felt a bit more like I don't know, higher status as an overcompensation for actually feeling lower status, maybe. Do you know what I mean? Like, my partner, she used to laugh about stuff. She used to say that I was incapable of playing low status, like in a room or a situation. And it really bothered me that was the perception that she had of me. And not in a bad way, like I don't have to control everything.
Yeah.
But like, not
being a centerpiece.
Not so much a centerpiece, just like not being belittled. And I think it's probably because there are lots of times at pivotal points where I'd feel out of my depth. Like, people talk about stuff like Imposter Syndrome and all that kind of stuff. Like, all this in hindsight. At the time, it was just like, oh, these are all dickheads. But really, what it was me just feeling uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? Like, there aren't many places, if I'm honest, that I feel kind of fully cool. So it feels like over time I've kind of worked to a way of just feeling cool everywhere, in response to the fact that lots of places just made me feel not so much like threatened, or just like not really myself, or really relaxed. And through story, so I'm sure the devising of story, the creating of story, and the writing of story, the performing of story has been a massive part in that. To the point where, I remember we chatted last time, we were talking about upbringing, and we were talking about like the strength and stuff that was imbued. It's all coming back to me now as we're talking. And even that I've rose tinted. Do you know what I mean? Like I've given them more input than they really, really had, because they kind of, a little bit, definitely. They kind of, because I'm very proud of it, and culturally I'm very proud of it, and heritage-wise I'm very proud of it. But like they just left us alone, really.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like that thing of like
Build
things
your
like
own compass up.
yeah, kind of. And like, you know, I was 12 when my folks split up, and not long after that, my dad just kind of was out and gone and not been part of the life. And that space, you know, in the most cliche way possible, was more valuable than anything. Like, I've never had a relationship that's been about advice or fatherly advice. I've never had that from anyone. There are certain people who, whether they admit it or not, I have that role for other people sometimes. But I just
mentors in some way or another.
Kind of, or I help them, or I make them feel better. Yeah. But or it's like, but I also, I'm normally quite a private person about private stuff.
Yeah.
And that sometimes that feels like it gives you the kind of an air of like playing high status or whatever else. I'm just not. I just like things being mine.
Yeah.
But love hearing and talking about your stuff. Do you know what I mean? And then through story, it's just something kind of freeing about it. And I just found this place where it's like, I think it might be as simple as finding something that I genuinely feel like I love and I'm all right at.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the most empowering thing ever. It's like, you used to play football, man. We used to play football, right? When I was like 14, I was on it, mate. That was it. It's just going to be football. It's just football. We're playing at the School of Excellence at Villa or whatever. And then there was one day where they got a few of us in to play. They'd scouted a bunch of people from around the country and they brought down this 11 and we were like the 11 to play them. And I went, oh, the level of some of these players, lad. And you know, you have them moments where you're like, right. Yeah. It was massive. I was crushed, really, because it was so clear then. Do you know what I mean? And it's like that thing of like, it was that thing of like, oh my God, I'm all right. At school or district, I'm shit hot.
Yeah.
I'm all right. And I'm like, not only I'm all right, I'm kind of small as well. And all these other things, whatever. And there were people whose brains, they just spoke the language of the game, especially in midfield, man. You know what it's like, right? You got to see, and like, I was still, and it became really clear. So then from then, it felt like for like 10 years or whatever, through college, you know, I was just kind of drifting.
Floating around.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I felt like I'd be all right at anything I try my hand to, but I didn't really know what that was. Didn't really care. And then it was just, and then bit by bit, story just started showing itself. And then influences of music and rhyming, and they kind of came together. And I can use rhyme and I can communicate it. I feel like I'm all right at that. That feels good. I figured something, and then it just kind of like showed itself. And I think that my long-winded answer of going all that stuff over time. It just, everything time you feel something that was what you wanted to say came out of your mouth, or that you were in a room and you helped somebody else say what they wanted to say, it's like a little bit of like this armor or something, or a little bit of strength comes into you. It's like a muscle. And you're like, right. And then you reach a point, a little while ago for me now, if I'm honest, where I'm like, this is what I do. This is what I do now.
Find your meaning.
Yeah, that's simple. And intertwined with that as well is the galvanizing and scary and empowering process of parenthood.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that
partner and becoming. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, you've got all kind of things through your mind. Like, I was the same age when our oldest was born than my dad was when I was born. Our youngest is now the same age that I was when my dad bounced. You know, he was still around for a little bit, but I mean, like, that's when they fully. Yeah. So our oldest is now like, he's just started sixth form. And the relationship that we have is a relationship that was impossible to have with my. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and that's 4 years now strong, 5 years since that things happened, and it seems kind of reductive to say that kind of thing, but just things like that. Every day something happens, or I feel like, or I just reaffirm something that I already feel. So you just feel like, yeah, I'm all right.
Well, let's nearly move into...
Sorry, that was a
No, mate, that was stunningly good, actually, because it took us into the parenting element, and I did want to touch on that today.
Yeah.
Listen to a podcast on Joe Rogan with Gabor Mate.
Okay, is a philosopher or something?
Yeah, philosopher and psychologist.
Okay.
And he's got a new book out now looking at why we're so fucked up as a culture and a species. Yeah. And again, it all transcends from being a baby in essence, and how we're raising our child. I think he said in the UK, over 75% of the population are medicated for something now. Yeah.
Is that for real?
Real, yeah. On the podcast, it blew my mind off. And again, mental health, and it's on the decline, and looking really into the meat of why that is.
Yeah.
So Just before we do go to the parenting side, though, we spoke about your first session in a class where it was, this is cool, this, and you were thinking on your feet. No pun intended there.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to talk of one anecdotal moment where you felt maybe this isn't the one.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Because I think that for people maybe do a similar thing to what we do, even if it's not teaching poetry, but they're in schools and whatever, and they've come home feeling absolutely deflated in the abyss of, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
No, completely. For me, for me, it's been less about like completely flopping, because I'm so defensive, or like I'm kind of like I'll sort myself out. I'm quite good at sorting myself out in terms of like shifting the blame away from myself, right? I'm quite good at that.
Then not bad.
Always have been, right? So it's less about like completely kind of crumbling. I've had things go really badly in the sense of people just not connecting with it, or the energy's been wrong because it's an afternoon thing, and like, we don't want to be here.
Just had dinner.
A couple of times you rock up, and I always go like, if I'm in an assembly or something, I'm like what lesson you're missing? And the majority of times it's either English because it's got to do with that area. But I remember going to a school once, and it was just a boys' school, and they were all like, they were year 9s, and it's like 300 of them. I'm like, what are you missing out? They're all like PE. And they've all got their kit. Listen, they've got their kit on. Oh. So not only they got sent to the changing rooms to go and play football, and then got told, nah, you come in for a poetry assembly, right? So here's what I do in them situations. What I've done is like, I just get defensive. So my guard's up, and I take that energy that most of the time feels lovely and feels kind of warm, like I'm just doing my thing. Come with me if you want. Don't worry if you're not. And I take it a little bit further, but I don't give a shit what you think.
I get you.
So what happens is it gets quite confrontational. And then a couple of times I've had a situation where, and what happens is teachers normally really like me or really don't like me.
Yeah.
Because I cause chaos, and it gets quite, bubbly, should we say, right in a room. But I remember, this is going to sound so crazy now. I remember a situation occurred where we're creating people, and bless this year 9 boy, they clearly created someone based on another person who was in the room, right? And that kind of like little hint of a bullying thing comes on, right? Which I hate it, right? So I went for him. Like I purposely tried to assassinate this boy's character in front of everybody. I was asking him questions and then cutting in over him. I was like undermining what he was kind of, do you know what I mean? I went right to the point, and if I'd done a little bit of it, it would have been like a little bit out of order, but it would have been all right. But I took it too far, right? And I felt when I took it too far, and I distinctly remember now as we're talking to you, I'm looking at you, and above your head I can see the clock in that room. And I remember looking at it and going, in my mind, there's 25 minutes left. And what I'm on the verge of now is this going really, really bad, because my brain won't let me backtrack. So I'm trying to change it and switch it up, right? So I remember I threw like a question to a teacher, and it kind of fizzled out. But that 25 minutes was hardcore,
long.
Mate. Like, do you know what I mean? And I was so profusely apologising afterwards. I went to try and find the boy that I'd undermined, and when I found him, it water off a duck's back. It wasn't even not fussed at all. So I'd kind of made it worse in my head. But I remember leaving, going, nah, mate, that's not the one at all. That's not. Do you know what I mean? That was about me. That was like, it was not. That didn't feel. That felt like it was just a box of snakes, a horrible box of the wrong snakes at the wrong time, and whichever way I looked at it, it was on me. And like I said, I'm good at making it not about me, blaming other people. But I was like, nah. And I remember that was one of them ones where you kind of make a decision in your head, you go like, right, remember what you're talking about. What is your goal? And my goal was to remove the pressure and to have fun with it. And someone presented it where it was like the worst possible audience. And rather than trying to embrace that, and I could have used elements of that, and we just got to get through this together, I went on the defensive, and I was embarrassed, man. Like fully to the point where like a couple of days after I was still like squirming about it, like, do you know what I mean, in the shower going, I don't want that to happen ever again.
So you were reflective enough to look back at that.
Oh my God, lads! I can feel it now.
Onwards,
I can feel it now. There's been a bunch. Like,
you said something nice there though, where it was water off a duck's back for him, and I think that's saying sort of what is taught and what is learned are two separate things.
Yeah.
And we can go into a vicious loop and cycle of thinking we've done the worst possible thing and beat ourselves up. But if you just have that balance of be reflective, learn from it if it's a mistake, but don't get into a big cycle of you're a bad person or you're a bad teacher or anything like that.
Completely. But I remember, you know, I don't know if you're a lot like this, but sometimes I don't really know what I think until I talk and the words come out of my mouth and go, oh, that's what I mean, right? I remember once I was talking to teachers in the staff room, and they were like, I remember it had done a thing, like it'd been like a full assembly again, like a few hundred kids, right? And, you know, some of them had been fully into it. Some of them had been just enjoying the fact that it was kind of chaotic and had been all over the place or whatever. And it coming afterwards, and the teacher was coming up in the staff room, and she's like, I'm sorry about that group I'm sorry about them. Da-da-da. And I was like, no, it's cool. And I said what we just said a minute ago, like the idea of that many people being into it, I don't think everyone should, I'm not trying to convert anyone. Like, I just want it to be on the shelf with the options. I don't want to tell you everyone should be writing. I don't think you should all be writers or love reading. But like, this is what I do, and I know that you're allowed to do it more than one way. Da-da-da. And I just said this stuff, and I was like, oh shit. So I started saying it. I started saying at the beginning of things, like, look, man, I said what I do. Not everyone's going to be into this. It's cool. I love my job. That's why I like coming. Not because I want you to be writers. And I started, and you know, I don't say every single time where it changes, but I make sure it's almost for myself.
Yeah. That
it reminds me that, like, right, I know in that room that, you know, 300, half of them are going to be like, oh, this is all right. And the other half, I'm going to be like, okay, right, I'm hungry, whatever, that's fine. 20 of them are going to be like, yo, there's something in this. And then like 5 of them are going to be like, I need to speak to him. And then 4 of those 5 are going to be like, I can't. And then one of them's going to come up with a friend for backup and go like, where can I find out about publishing? Or I've got this story, do you want to have a look? And I'm like, that ratio is kind of sweet and gorgeous. Like you were saying in the car before, if we get one person to come and do it, and people think you're being like you romantic, or you being kind of like evangelical or something, or being like sanctimonious, like if I get one kid, and you're like, no, mate, have you ever been in a room? Have you been in a room with 30, 14-year-olds, right? Do you remember being 14?
Yeah.
Do you remember ever being in a room with that other people and being into something and looking around and think anyone else was into it? That's really rare. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, right, and you kind of, I have to say that to myself again and again and again. I believe it, but I doubt it constantly. Yeah. So I'm constantly reminding myself that's what it is, because it's like, right, and it all feeds into that thing of like, right, just remove that pressure from them and yourself.
Is that sort of, because I'm just going to say a thing now, which it's come into my life of recent, and I know I didn't invent this, but I must have heard it somewhere, but I've decided to come up with a mission statement.
Right.
And I tried to really build it into a sentence.
To do. Have you done it?
Yeah, I've done it in a sentence.
Mate, that's the hardest thing to do.
It come from all the values I've got, and it come from what I want out of the choices I make.
Yeah.
I want it to all be based off of that sentence.
Okay.
But my sentence is lighting paths.
Yeah.
And that's for me and for others. But
dude, that's just 2 words. That's the most succinct sentence.
Lighting paths.
That's the sickest mission statement I've ever heard.
And honestly, it's alleviated so much stress in my life. And that's for myself and others. But every time I'm making a decision on something, I'm thinking, is this making their life heavier or is it making it lighter? And is this making my life heavier or is it making it lighter? And I tried to make it metaphorical, because then lighting paths, if I connect you to somebody else and you join forces, that's a path lit. You can walk down together and it opens up there. But what was yours then? Just alleviating pressure?
I guess it's never felt like a statement as such. Yeah. I mean,
had you heard that before? Is that an idea of having a mission statement for life?
Yeah, the concept, yes, but not one as succinct as that, lad. that fits like it would apply to.
I've just had some harder days on the farm, in life. Yeah. Probably a bit of distrust in self. I try not to use labels, but with dyslexia, I saw this thing the other day, and it mentioned dyslexics. Your word recall is often not great. And I've been really noticing. I'd been struggling. I knew the words, but the wrong ones were coming out and stuff.
Completely.
And then I beat myself, especially doing a podcast. But I beat myself up about it. But am I making my life harder here, darker and heavier? So I was like, do you know what? I'm just gonna have a mission statement, reflect back to it, and then try and put it up against anything that I'm doing with others as well. And it's really, really helped me in life. So when you mentioned, what am I doing here? Am I going to be take away the pressure.
Yeah.
I thought, I wonder if you do a similar thing.
I do, but it's the one that sounds so throwaway and whatever. A one that I grew up with, and it's all right.
Yeah.
Right, or all good, as my grandparents would have said, or whatever. And it's what that means is it's not that it is all good. It's just that when you step back, you're like,
it's like that. Anyway. It is what it is.
It's happening exactly. It's happening anyway, and you're like, right. So I think that in me, or not necessarily the words, like in my, although do. And I think what's been a massive for me, strength is like, grief, in the sense of like a few years ago I lost someone like before their time. Like I'd lost people who were older, but losing someone before their time. And like, he'd been ill, and I knew it was kind of coming at some point, and you try and make your peace with it. But when it actually happened, I'd never known anything like that in my life, in the most cliched, stereotypical way possible. It was like waves of it. People talk about, I'm in the chippy, and it was just like, part of it, I think, was the unfairness of it, or whatever. And what it meant it changed. I genuinely feel like I'm different in the last nearly 4 years now. It'll be. I feel very different in terms of perspective, but also in terms of ease. Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I get sad at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Like really quickly, like noticeably quickly than I did previous to this, to him passing. But I also feel a lot less flustered or lost than I did. And that's noticeable. Like, and it's something I kind of struggle to talk about, not because it's necessarily painful. I feel like I'm holier than thou, or I'm like, do you know what I mean? Like I've landed on some wisdom that people have known forever. It all sounds cliche, but it's like, it's all right.
Yeah.
Because if that can happen, come on, man. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, and maybe then the wrestle becomes about not going too far away and falling into like ambivalence or like nihilism, even where nothing matters.
Yeah.
But really, it's that similar. I have conversations with my partner all the time. It's about a sense of like, right, it doesn't really matter, and that sounds dismissive. But what I do matters more than anything in the world, and it doesn't really matter. And that that kind of that dichotomy, that kind of thing of it, is where I'm kind of living now, and it kind of sorts me out, because it means it makes me feel like at least I'm choosing to make it matter.
Yes.
And if I'm doing that, all I need or all I want is positive. All I want is the sharing. All I want is to help. All I want is to feel good in this room. Do you know what I mean? And facilitate that. So it's kind of weirdly sorted me out and messed me up at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the beautiful polarity in it.
I guess so.
Slight story. I used to play. Sorry for this trivialising. It's such a beautiful thing.
Not at all.
I remember it had a profound effect on me when I was about 14, because I was in the rugby team.
Yeah.
And we were a really good team.
Were you rugby and football then?
Yeah, man, both. I loved it. I was sport galore, mate. I love sport.
Right.
But Derby we'd be playing for.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, because I played from 9 till 15.
Yeah.
And we're in the first team, and we only lost 3 times in the whole time of being in that club.
Right.
3 times.
I
One
don't even know
against
what
Norwich.
position. I don't even know what gone.
Oh, a prop forward I was, yeah.
So, do you get much of the ball?
I was a big, heavy guy. Right, okay. So, scrummages, bam.
Yeah.
But it was one of these teams, because we were so good, we had 4 teams eventually, so A, B, C and D, and there was, in the under 14s, there was probably 60 kids or more, maybe, more in it, and they were all quite rich parents.
Yeah.
So you get the doctors coming in, the lawyers, everybody like that, and they all wanted their kids to be the rugby player.
Yeah.
Because
there is that class thing with it.
All the kids were going off into Leicester Tigers. I got into NLD.
Union.
Yeah,
rugby union, right?
Union. Yeah. So it was a really good team. Incredible players, and because we've been there from the start, I was accepted in that team. But then, as all these doctors' sons were coming in and stuff, so we'd go to the house parties, and I remember there was actually only about 7 of us, but it's our first proper drinking session. And we got a crate of Carlsberg, I think it was, and I had all of them with the big players, and I was drinking like 1-0. And then we've gone to the Chinese. So we went to this lawyer's house. It must have been like a 14-bedroom mansion. And then I'm absolutely leathered as a 14-year-old. and I'm kicking because the doors won't open like normal doors. Of course, they're like posh person sliding doors.
Yeah.
So I'm kicking them over, like I'm kicking through them.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't work it out. And then I don't know if this person's mum and dad know this about me yet. Hey guys. but mate, I don't know if it was 14 bedrooms, but it was a lot of bedrooms.
Yeah.
The one bedroom I end up finding is the parents' master bedroom.
Yeah.
So I get in there, I've smashed the door down, I've got in bed, and I've just thrown up everywhere, all over me, but a lot of sick.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning, and I'm just greeted by Ed, who was more looking down at me, and all the lads were laughing and all that. And I felt disgusted in myself. I couldn't believe it. I was looking at the carnage that I'd caused. I'd never got that drunk. I'd probably had a few drinks before, but I didn't know what I was doing. But the lad was the best in the team, Shane Purcell. He's gone into what's that big heavy man, strong man stuff.
Okay, right.
Incredible guy.
Yeah.
So we'd all gone out. They decided they're going to blame it on the cat. That amount of sick, they were like, the cat did it. But Shane just said, and I remember it so well, only such a young lad, he just went, worst things have happened out at sea.
Yeah.
And that moment of, this isn't the worst thing that anyone's ever done.
Yeah.
You weren't maliciously going out your way to hurt them, harm them, do that. You've just made a mistake.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. I've never forgot it. I really remembered that.
I got some of them people in I grew up, okay, maybe tying this back to kind of, I grew up with a bunch of them people, like thinking about grandparents, thinking about family members who had come to a country and gone through some heinous stuff that probably gave them that perspective.
Caribbean.
So my family, the Jamaican side of the family that kind of, and you land and.
Is that the Windrush generation?
Yeah,
is that,
it is. Yeah, it is. And like, when you get past just the plain and simple bullshit of the lie of being told to come home and having a British passport and all that stuff, the animosity and being kind of kept in one part of this. Anyway, so the stuff that they'd gone through, I'm sure was a massive part in them landing on this philosophy in a sense of like, don't worry about it, man. It's all good because it's not this. We didn't know that it's not this bit when we were kids. We just knew that right. Unless it was malice, they not tolerated at all. You'd be in trouble if you'd done something on purpose to somebody or someone to you. But anything out like stupidness, as they would have said, right?
Stupid.
We can. Yeah, it's stupid, and you're gonna clean it up, and then we're gonna move on. Do you know what I mean? And I think I'm sure you're thinking about it now. Like there is that sense of, it's perspective, and it's hard. It's easy to have it from the outside and kind of look and be someone else, but it's. I don't know, man. It's like, again, cliche stuff. It's like it's not that long. It's just not that long. And you're like, right, it's up to you. Today, you know what I mean? It's a Friday. Are you going to be like this? Are you going to be like that?
Yeah.
And if you're in a position where you can choose, holy shit, mate, like, choose well. Choose well. And like you say, it the only reason I'm here and the only reason I get opportunities, I think, I'm all right at what I do. But what you get from me is that, hopefully, that kind of, that's the energy of like, come on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you're allowed, and like, yeah, let's do it. And I think that's not to say, that's not about, waking up and attacking the day as such. That's not really my philosophy at all. But it's just like, just try and tap into a thing that makes you feel good, and that will just radiate. And it's like, boom. You know what I mean?
Imagine we go through all this and then I see you tonight and you're actually complete, you little bastards. I just had this lovely image.
There would have been
going into the session.
Yeah. There probably would have been a time where it's like, you kind of, it's so funny, innit? Like so many things that I say now, as I say them, I can almost remember saying them and pretending. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Completely,
like you're doing it because you think that's what you're supposed to say to yourself and whatever else. It just so happens, man. I mean what I say. Yeah. And again, that does something. That does something to you.
Well, you know what the consequence of that is.
I guess
and you're aware to that.
And it does something to you, like you say, this idea of confidence and whatever else. There's confidence. Like I've never been the richest person in the room. I've never been the biggest person. I've never been the most dangerous person in the room. Do you know what I mean? Like I've never been those things, but it's like I'm me. I'll say what I mean, and I've been in lots of situations where I felt uncomfortable for reasons that I don't really care about. Do you know what I mean? Like, get to uni and you're like, holy shit, I didn't even know we were poor.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Because I was the first one to, and like, I'm around people like that, Jesus, like, how are you, what are you going at? Like, I didn't, the concept of people having that much money, it made me feel so shook. And to this day, I'm more philosophical about it, but my one button, or the main security is that sense of like not having, and like wanting to overcompensate for that, or making me feel uncomfortable, embarrassed. It's the only thing I get embarrassed about is dough, and not in the sense of I want more or mansions, just that like I still pay for shit and go, don't be declined, and I know there's money in there. Do you know what I mean? And that's in you. Yeah. And people go, oh, that's good, it keeps you grounded or whatever else. Okay, but it's still an insecurity that you have to kind of live with. And, and then people start. I always swerve things about class, like people opportunity. Oh, do you want to be part of this collection? And I don't, because I don't like it. I don't like anybody telling me what I am and what I'm not. Right? And you go, okay, well that's naive. We live in a world. I know the world that we live in, mate. And you telling me what I am doesn't help make it any less that. In fact, I think it makes it more that. Because it gives me either a chip on the shoulder, and that's a barrier to me doing stuff with people who... I've met some really cool people who've come from full silver spoon. Yeah. And do you know what I mean? It's like it's that weird compartmentalisation that everyone does.
It generalises.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it kind of... It offers you clarity in terms of thinking you know what things are.
Yeah, that's beautiful,
but it doesn't offer you clarity in terms of what you do. Yeah. Because it stops you doing stuff. Because if you're that, I'm not supposed to. Or if I'm this, I'm not allowed to. And you're like, well, okay, you get into, you can't transcend these things, Steve, and these are where things exist. You're like, well, okay, in a room, they don't have to. What you do outside that room, what you take, that's up to you, and you navigate stuff. But I know that a story doesn't give a shit. Story does not give a toss about who wrote it. Yeah. Story doesn't even give a toss. A real story doesn't give a toss if you read it. I want to be shared, but the story becomes about what happens and what is made there and then. And it's like, it's just microcosm for a perspective on everything. I think
that's the connecting the dots.
I think so. I mean, I might listen back to this and go, "What are you fucking talking about?"
No, it feels right.
Do you know what I mean?
Saying. Yeah, I really like it.
No, wicked.
I went to a talk somebody recently doing like a keynote speak. Yeah. And just one thing that resonated with me, she's like, I don't look at somebody about the amount of money that was in the home, but the amount of love that was shown within it. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's really nice because I've from all ends of the spectrum. I've seen the nicest people with absolutely nothing there, and they're keen writers and they just want to be involved because they've been shown that amount of love. Yeah. That it's respectful and it's being a part of it. Yeah, yeah. And that was profound what she said. I thought that's a nice way of. Yeah,
I completely agree, and I think it's that thing of, one thing, you talk about this idea of kind of manifestos or things about stuff. It's like I was saying, one thing I do say to myself, and one thing I say out loud is. I think I'm repeating myself now, but it's like I don't think everyone should be writers. I don't think everyone wants to be a writer, but everyone's allowed. And I didn't know that. Yeah. I genuinely thought the opposite. So it's like, right, if I can do this and show you the way that I do it, if it resonates with you slightly because you're from anything similar to a background like me, which traditionally, maybe less and less, but overall it would have seemed less likely or less conducive to a career in the arts or being valid as a writer, then wicked. But I'm not trying to. Come on, kids, we're all going to write. We're all going to be writers, not at all. But just know that accountant, drug dealer, and all the rest of them, writer or not even writer, man. Just doing something creative and help like that is
passion-fueled people.
That's a viable career. Yeah. And you're like, right, and it's not easy. And there are elements of it you'll have to dance and navigate that we have to do all the time. But it's like, right. It's just that license that you're allowed to do it. So if there was, that's probably the kind of purpose that I keep in my back pocket in terms of what to do, and why the energy that comes off that is probably why people often steer you towards the kids that think they're not allowed to. It's not just because I can rhyme. It's because you clearly are somebody who thought they weren't allowed to. You have that kind of energy. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's the important thing for me, or the beautiful thing for me, is to carry that energy without a chip on your shoulder. because it's no.
I've met them people, mate. I've met them, and it's toxic in the end.
Exactly.
Because all it ever revolves back around is but they've got this opportunity because of this, they and the nepotism and it. It's like you're only going to keep yourself down here.
Completely, man.
But if you carry what you do with love and with good energy, and you just put it forward and say, "This is what we do."
Yeah.
It includes everybody in for the ride.
Yeah. And it's nice, isn't it? Because we were talking before about, fighting or strength or or the honor of stuff or the kind of instincts, and you're like, right, how can I put this without sounding like flipping? I don't know. Like it's like I know what I do, and I've got a sense of what is fair in terms of in a room when something's out of order. Right, people see me and like go, it's the sessions. They're chaotic. Anything can happen. Whatever. Anything can happen story wise. But if you're out of order, I'm gonna say. And you're like, right, okay. So it's like that's because you came from this. Like, no. Fair's fair. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's useful.
Code of conduct. Here.
I struggle with this all the time. It's really funny because our kids they've grown up in one way, economically, very different to how I grew up.
Yeah.
And so, but they have it there. So their sense of fairness comes less from a place of not having. It just becomes from a place of being us fostering them, being aware of have and have nots and how lucky they are and how privileged they are in that kind of way, and fostering that sense that they have a perspective which is aware of themselves without feeling downtrodden or without feeling like kind of hoity-toity. Whereas for me, it would have come from a sense of like never having and kind of getting and like having to get over that thing of like just hating certain people because they seem to be moaning when they seem to have everything, and not understanding that they're having stuff is more than just the things you can kind of see and kind of hold, and then realizing later on how lucky I was and how proud I am of that. But also, like you say, I wear it I don't wear it like a badge so you feel uncomfortable, because that has its own. It doesn't help anybody. It's like, plus as well, who cares? Mate, who really cares? Do you know what I mean? What we doing?
Yeah.
What we doing now? We're doing this. Wicked. Forget the rest of it, and then do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Sorry, this is definitely rambling on now.
That's what I do podcast for, mate.
Right,
that's this is gold to me. I'll be listening to this back, smiling a lot. I listened to the last one in the same way. Did it go for you then, teaching in schools, teaching young people, inspiring young people, then becoming a dad? Or did it be you were dad and then that?
Yo, same time.
Really?
I went from... I don't know if I said this to you before.
Process?
I went from in the space of, 6 months? So in the space of 6 months. So in 6 months, I'm in my mum's house in the spare room, working on a building site in Birmingham, not having a clue what I was doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, existing was writing little bits on scraps of paper or whatever, doing it. And then in the space of 6 months, I went from first gig, deciding I wanted to be with somebody who was in a different city and making that decision, performing alongside that and getting an opportunity to perform, deciding I was going to move and then finding out we were pregnant.
Sure.
Luckily, something I'm so grateful of is I know that I'd made the decision to be and go to somebody before I found out that we were having a baby. So the idea of duty got left completely other way. It wasn't like, okay, I've got to go now, because I think that can be quite a poisonous thing that could grow into something else. Like I was like, I want to be with this person. I'm coming, and she'd wanted me to move to London for a long time, right? So I didn't go to London for spoken word. I went for a person, and then literally, like it might have been a couple of days later or whatever, I get a phone call. I'm coming to Birmingham. What's going on? I'm pregnant, and we're like, holy shit, right? And this is the funny thing. It took her the same amount of time to get to Birmingham from Euston as it took me to get into town from my mum's house, because I was on the bus and they come every 45 minutes or whatever. So we get there and we get off. I meet her in New Street and it's like, we're doing it. And it's like, boom. And then next thing you know, we're in her parents' place in the bedroom that she grew up in, looking to try and find the tiny studio flat. And she's pregnant. I've got an opportunity to write something for Apples. So it all happened at the same time, and then weirdly, my first paid educational thing was a project in the borough back up in Birmingham where I grew up, and it was with preschoolers, and they're like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I know what we'll do, animal wraps." So I was going around to nurseries, making animal masks and I've made up these little animal raps, and we were rapping as animals with nursery students.
This is amazing.
And then and then I'm going home to a baby back in London. So it was like it was all intertwined. So it's almost inseparable for me.
And that wasn't planned for whatsoever. Just landed.
Mate, not the career. The only thing I can claim like agency for fully is the decision to go and be with her.
Yeah.
And maybe the decision to get on stage that time. I could have Welshed.
Yeah.
Enough of me wanting to see what this was, and then that was what led to the second gig. So, but all at the same time. So that's why it's weird. It's like people assume you do gigging all the time. In London, I didn't do half the gigs I could have done because I didn't want to be away. But then when I did gig, I got a bit of a reputation for being kind of aloof or too cool for school because I would go, do my thing, and then bounce so I could milk and bottle whatever. And it was like that sounds like oh, what a hero. No. That was just what was needed. It was done. Do you know what I mean? And so there were opportunities to go that I didn't take. There were other situations where, and then it was like, people go, oh, it must be so hard now. I found it easier to write purely because it had to fit around this thing where I spent so long. Was there then. So long, like trying to convince myself, like, romantic. I'm on a building site. I'm writing on this scrap. I was trying to become a character, and I was like, yo, this baby doesn't give a shit about anything. This baby wants food now and new pants. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got 2 hours, go. And I'm like, I need to sleep. Okay, sleep now. Next 2 hours. Do you know what I mean? Before you knew it, that period of time, he was born in 2006, our oldest. Our youngest was born in 2009. Right, between them, in them 3 years, I wrote shitloads. Like, loads. Yeah. And then the next 5 years, I wrote loads again because then it became about nursery schedules. And they were both in rehearsal rooms with us, strapped in a baby carrier. I'm doing, like, monologues an hour long with a baby on me. We felt like a little group, like a troupe or a little crew. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And because my partner would be working with me and directing, she directs and she does script development. She was my first. It just made sense out of nowhere. So people were like, "What do you do?" Or like we'd rock up to a theatre and they'd be like, "What? You're together? That's your baby?" And she's direct. It was like it blew people's minds. People were like,
mind-blowing.
It's just necessity. It wasn't like we're not trying to be some sort of cool like representatives or whatever. It's
zany.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like we've got to. And then we got it. The place was too small. We were going to have to leave London. Then we dropped lucky at a wedding where someone had a place that they were moving out of, and we could take their place, which we could have never have afforded. Do you know what I mean? And like these things, it just kind of galvanizes you. It makes you feel like unconsciously, I think I'm doing the right thing. And also, and when you feel like you're doing the right thing, you just feel good and you feel strong. So before you know it, I'm this confident person having craziness and blips and ups and downs like everyone else does who's a parent and in a relationship and who's freelance. But the linchpins of it, the kind of the core thing, the love and the purpose has just only ever kind of grown, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
But that's different, and that's just me navigating a freelance as an individual. You're like you've got a community on your shoulders, lad. And it's like that's a whole other kettle of fish. But in essence, I would maybe argue that it's the same in the sense that it's like, right, purpose and the love and the strength from that and the acknowledgement, it just takes ages. Do you know what I mean? And we're talking like what, 2006? 2022 now. They're publishing a thing of old stuff of mine, and the latest thing that was in there that's written is 2009. It even says on the cover, 2004 to 2009. On this collection of things, it's like I'll send you one when it comes out.
Mate, I will
do.
Beautiful.
But like, it's a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
takes a lot of weight off saying that. Yeah. It really does.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Because I have been somebody that's always wanted things to happen overnight.
Yeah.
I think that's been ingrained into me. Yeah. Sort of. I remember my mum's just a high achiever, and she doesn't quite realise that what she created is exactly what she wanted.
Yeah.
But then she had that expectation on us to be living that dream when it wasn't our dream.
That's hard, man.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
so then I'd be playing with my dad at Xbox or something. Pro Evolution Soccer 2004.
Yo, Pro Evo.
Oh, that was better. Yeah. It was better.
Way better. And they didn't have the license for the names. So all the names.
Yeah. Man Blue.
Ras and Brink. I remember Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was Ras and Brink. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I was always not Man Red. What were Arsenal?
Some of them were Trad Brick or something. London Red.
North London. Yeah.
North London.
North London. But literally, if me and him were just dossing off and playing a game and trying to win the World Cup or win the Premier League, she'd come in and absolutely scream and cause havoc for us. So I've had this ingrained into me where I've got to be on it. Can't relax, can't sit back. I'm supposed to be either achieving or moving or doing. So I'm trying to build into that relaxation and not put too much pressure on. Things have to be now. It's as well as that's probably most people want it to be then and there. I feel I've had a bit of a history and a past towards that. So having you come over and just say, listen, man, what you're doing's right. It's in the right place. Just keep stepping. Just keep moving.
Completely.
It's
and
beautiful.
Also to it. Well, you're welcome, Lebanon. It's like I mean it, but I think how amazing to be able to kind of go that reflection, and whatever your energy your mum kind of brought, it was done from love because it's an eternal thing. So it's like, but the reflection to be able to see that for what you determine it to be, and then go, okay, I want more of this to counteract that, and to have that ability to kind of just be just a self-awareness one. That in itself is a kind of gift because it's
helping
like,
me be a better dad.
You know what I mean?
And
completely, lad. Completely. And it's like, what's gorgeous is like everyone. You're going to rose tint everything. We all are.
Yeah.
Right. Like I look back, they didn't have a clue what we were doing. They didn't know. They didn't like. And they gave me the freedom. They gave me the space. No, they were just busy. They weren't consciously letting me figure it out myself. They didn't. They had to earn a crust.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And other times, she was really protective and it helped me with the protective. No, she kept me close because she was. Do you know what I mean? It was
the anxiety.
Everyone's motivations are a little bit selfish, a little bit selfless. It's all. I think what's the most reassuring thing for me is, and it sounds a little bit like what we were saying before about everything matters and doesn't matter. No one's got a clue.
Yeah, it's just a concoction and making it up on the spot, isn't it?
Lad. And it's like
sometimes you fall on your feet, sometimes it's your arse.
Like you said. And if you can go, right, worst things have happened at sea.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll get up and cool. So, but sometimes things happen, you're like, no, I think this might be the worst thing that's ever happened. Then what do you do? And like, I'm trying to think in my head. Yeah, you just don't know, do you?
I think the important thing is the breathing space, though.
Yes.
It's that we do have an answer. There's an answer there.
Yes.
But just give it the breathing space.
Yeah. Okay, then. And thinking about what you were saying earlier about this idea, we're talking about this idea of kind of, I've always been all right at giving myself that.
That's good. And that's really
I've always been all right at giving myself that. And it's
interesting.
And whether that is, sometimes that's selfish. Well, sometimes that's selfish in the sense of, me having to choose that over something else. That might be an opportunity. That might be someone else's time. But I'm going to be all right. Right? Because I make sure that I am.
You see, you say like you rose tint, but I go to dark from my past.
Right.
But I'm trying also not to be the victim.
Yeah.
I don't want to play that role either because I've stayed trapped in it.
But you're allowed to be both, lad.
Yeah, you can.
Do you know what I mean?
Just take acknowledgement of what went on.
Something can be. We don't have to make something not fucked up that was fucked up.
Yeah.
But you're like,
be real.
Yeah.
I had because particularly with women, my relationships and rocky road with women has always been quite prevalent in my life. So it was like a mate of mine had a really archetypal existence. He's my best friend, and his mum's this really nurturing, loving figure, and the whole family. I know I don't know inside the doors, but I've seen it from afar all my life, and I'm like, oh, that's really beautiful. And as a result, his attitude is it's similar to yours, but it's very chill, and it's allows himself time. So if he has a breakup, it's not like water off a duck's back kind of thing, but he's relaxed on it.
Yeah, there's a reflection.
Well, we'll see what happens, man. She'll come through, or she'll come round. But because I seek validation, and women in particular, and really needed to be loved, if I'd had a breakup, I've got to be at the door. I've got to be around. What's happening? Please just tell me, are we all right? And I've noticed that within me, so I'm trying to become aware to that. But you are a product of your past, aren't you?
I think so. I mean, of course. But I do. What's interesting is, like you say, we're actively now building people's pasts in our children. You know, like these things, like things are happening. And
that's really cool.
Well, mine are kind of old now, right? But I remember 16 and nearly 13. Wow. Right, but here's the thing. For ages now, things would happen, and my brain's going, yeah, that's a memory. that's a memory.
Yeah.
We're in we get caught in the rain and we're sprinting and we run into this little chippy and we accidentally have the best chips ever. And we're sitting outside. I'm like, fuck, that's a memory. We just made a memory, and they're going, whatever, man, pass the salt. You know what I mean? Like, but it's like you're doing it now. You're doing it now. Some of them won't be like tangible memories, but energy. The energy is going into these people now, and it's not always easy, but it's just that it's like, what do you want? What energy do you want to fill somebody up with? And for me, it's always been, look, I'm going to help you.
Lighting paths.
It's all right. Yeah, mate. Bruv, it's one of them. And it's only funny because it's exactly what we mean.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I'm going to try some days I'm going to be screwing. I really am. Because I've got things in my head that make me angry that that I'm going to wrestle with forever. But what is it that I want to fill you up with? And it's that one. It's all right. It's all right. Come on, man. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I think a really funny example is, not a funny example, whatever. Our oldest, like both of them couldn't give a toss about football at all. And I remember, so we've got friends who are about 5 years plus older than us who had kids when we did, or younger. There wasn't anybody in our little, like, we were mid late 20s. I was 26 when our oldest first was born, right? And like, so there was no one in exactly the same position. They were either a little bit more established financially, and there definitely weren't anyone who was both freelance. We were both freelance, so they thought we were mad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and the parents were properly worried or whatever else, right? But it's like that thing of, but also more mates or people that I knew, they're like, oh, get him a ball, and my brain's going, okay, wicked, we'll get a ball around. But I even remember being really conscious then. It was like, we'll see. Let's see if he picks up. We'll get a ball there. We'll get a whole bunch of stuff, and if he wants to do it, he'll do it. And I can't lie. There've been times throughout my life where like a match has been on or whatever, or like, do you remember? There was a period of time when Barcelona and Real Madrid were proper like classic. It's like Jose Mourinho, Pep times, like mate. Boom. And there was one year where they played each other like 4 times, right?
Yeah.
And
it was always like 4-2.
Oh, incredible!
Big scores.
And our oldest was about, I don't know, 8 at the time or whatever. And I'm like, I can't lie, I was so wanting him to kind of, he couldn't give a toss, to the point where it became hilarious with my partner. She's just laughing.
And I was going mad for it.
And I'm like, it's just not his thing.
Yeah.
Right? And there'd be little blips of time where I was like, oh, I wish you just wanted to go kick a ball around. Do you know what I mean? I bought one of them nets.
Yeah.
Just because, just to see. But I've always kind of been quite good at going, just presenting stuff and then seeing. So they're into what they're into. And what they're into, what's lovely is now, no one's going to meet our kids and go, oh, it's just a mini him at all, man. To the point where you'd meet him and you'd be like, really? Like, but then maybe someone else would say differently, but I can tell. But in terms of like, they're their own people. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And like, part of that is just imbuing them with the pair of us, just kind of just not wanting to, just giving them the love and the space. Yeah, man. And I think it's that thing of, same thing.
Are you happy that you've taken that direction then? Is that parenting advice to some degree for people?
Oh shit, I don't know about that. But
it's just your approach. But
I'm happy because we, from the very beginning, the way we have both talked about it, or both not even talked about it, like we just knew each other. We've done it in the way that feels right for us, and they are 2 happy humans.
That's number one.
Do you know what I mean? And we're 4 happy humans, and it's been hard. There's been things that, you know what I mean, along the way, of course. But in terms of an energy, you're not chilling with us, going fucking hell, let's get out of here, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like we've been a group from early, and we still have. Maybe sometimes to the detriment of other people. Maybe sometimes we're the bubble's too tight.
I get you.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe if I'm really, really honest, in terms of like family and stuff, you might think, oh, they're a little bit, they keep themselves to themselves a little bit. But that was definitely our choice.
Yes.
And it works for us, and it feels right for us still.
I feel like we're going to have to do a whole podcast on parenting.
Let's do it, lad.
Do you know what? We've got another on the way.
Yo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yes.
Mate, we've got another on the way.
When are we talking?
May the 13th.
Yo.
So,
I'm
May the 8th.
19th, and our oldest is the 2nd.
Dude, May's the good year, isn't it?
My mum's the 18th.
Dude, so
strong
month. It is. I'm really trying to immerse myself in these sort of conversations now, because it's weird, isn't it? As you come into parenting.
How old's your oldest?
Ella is nearly 2. Nearly 2.
So
it's gonna be a nice.
Man.
That was the plan, and also Chrissy. You wouldn't believe it. You've seen Chrissy, haven't you? 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
So there's a big age gap there.
Yeah.
And we were thinking of the biological clock.
Yeah.
So we thought,
Wicked.
Let's get it in. Let's go.
Oh, that's so exciting, man! Congratulations.
I'm loving it, man, and I really am I'm just learning all the time.
Yeah,
and, you know, it is that constant, am I being too pushy here?
Yeah.
Am I not being enough here? How do I conduct myself around this little person?
Yeah.
You just got to kind of accept there's always going to be some kind of byproducts along the way. You're going to...
I've just remembered something. Sorry to interrupt
No,
you, Mike. I just remembered something that my nan used to say. You're thinking about this thing. It's like, I remember her saying to my mom, how weird is this? I mean, whether I snuck in and was tapped into conversations they were having in the kitchen, when I used to say, kids don't follow advice, they follow example.
Huh.
And I remember that being in my head, and that's been in the back of my head all the time, I think.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you could tell me what to do, but what are you doing?
You could show me what to do.
I can see what you're doing all the time, and that translates to everything. How you speak to people, how you are, how you're good to yourself or not good to yourself. You can tell me as much as you want. Do you know what I mean? What's like do as Miss says, not as Miss does, or something. I remember being in one of my classrooms, and I was like, that's completely wrong. That's the opposite.
There's a lot of those sayings, isn't there, that fly around, and you actually question it and go, I don't think that's healthy, actually.
I think it keeps order.
My mate, he works for child protection, but he's like a manager of all child protections. And his first piece of advice going into the job was always trust the children.
Yeah.
And he was like, it about took a week, and he went, no, don't do that. That's really awful advice. Every case needs to be looked at.
Just cut to one child giggling. Going, yeah. I got you.
So it told me some awful things straight away. They're trying to pin on this person, He went, no, I'm not just going to follow that protocol. I'm going to dig deep and learn my own way through this. And
for sure.
I suppose that's what parenting is.
I think so.
That's what life is.
I think so. You've got to trust your gut, haven't you?
Yeah.
And acknowledge that a mistake isn't the assassination of your own character. It's a mistake.
Should we do a whole parenting one next time?
Like, I think I'm well up for it. Otherwise, I'll probably just and you've got to cut it short if I start going up my own arse. Do you know what I mean,
mate? I'll follow you up there. go along with it. But when I started doing podcasting, I really mean this. This is the kind of conversation that I wanted to be, because it was. I think I did just start on Rogan. Yeah. And I don't know if I said this to you before, but it was just a friend in the pocket.
Yeah.
I felt quite isolated, a bit alone as a kid.
Yeah.
And then I discovered podcasts. And it's like, I never have to be alone. I'm alone.
It's a mad one, isn't it? Because like it's one of them things where I think these things all the time, but how often do you? I'm lucky that my partner and I, we talk all the time. Obviously, and we're around each other a lot. But in terms of a kind of a conversation with somebody that you know, but also have things to find out about.
Yeah.
It's just kind of rare.
Yeah.
Which is nuts, because I know what everyone else is doing, their business, but in an actual kind of conversation, it's a pleasure, man. And hopefully, I've not spoke again at 100 miles an hour, although I didn't really.
I don't think you did last time either.
I wasn't paying attention to myself. No, I mean, last time I was conscious of it, and I felt I was slower because one before I'd spoke to someone, and it was like brrr, and I do have a tendency. Once it starts, mate, to just go.
There's a guy on a podcast, Andy Frisella. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
A more motivational speaker type.
Okay, yeah.
But I work, one of my best mates, Dan James, he's got a podcast called The Prime Life Project.
Yeah.
And he's clearly, I'm more Rogan-esque, sort of just listening in and trying to find the interesting bit. But Andy's, you motherfucker, gotta fucking do that. And Dan has that take on it at times. But I really resonate with that too, because the boxing days where I didn't want to get up at 5 a.m. and go for a sweat run or whatever, I had to have that on my headphones and get the fuck up.
Yeah.
And it's
context is everything, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got its place, and I think we need all those different voices to exist. So fast talking for me just lights me up and gets me ready.
Well,
so
if you ever need some, lads,
just let you know. It's good to go.
Wicked.
Again, dude, just quickly, where can people see all the stuff that you've done?
Oh man, look, I'm not really on there anymore. I mean, like if you Google Steven Camden Polar Bear, social stuff will come up, but I've not been on there for a few months. But I probably will be more when this collection comes out in November.
Awesome.
Just because I'm kind of chuffed. It's gonna be really fun, because it's like looking through old photos that you actually of something you actually enjoyed happening. Do you know what I mean? So that's coming out. So I guess just for Google.
Just find Go and watch the poem Jessica on YouTube. It's one of the greatest of all time. I'm never going to let that go.
It's never going anywhere, is it?
It's beautiful, that. Well played,
Wicked.
sir.
Nice
thank you for today, man. Really enjoyed it.
Lovely
I'll do my bit. Guys, you've been a part of the Old Farm Bus, Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. I'm going to leave you on this. I always do, and I always will. Just be nice to one another. That's all you got to do. You're a beautiful set of buggers. See you later.